This story makes me cry every time I hear it. Let me tell you. Amanda Scarpinati. In 1977, Amanda Scarpinati, who was then only 3 months old, suffers a terrible accident. As a tiny baby, she rolled off the couch and fell into a vaporizer. The incident was devastating and severely burned her body. The melted menthol ointment damaged her tissues. It was a disaster, and an ambulance was called to take her to the hospital. Everyone feared for her life. The closest facility was Albany Medical Center, where she would meet the woman who would be in her dreams for the rest of her life. She only knew that her body ached intensely and that something had gone terribly wrong. Amanda had to be treated for third-degree burns all over her little body, with the worst damage to her arms and head. The medical staff at the hospital did everything they could to make the little girl comfortable, and she had to stay in the hospital for a couple of weeks to be monitored and to have her bandages renewed. The biggest risk was infection, but fortunately, she pulled through. But this was just the beginning of a painful journey for little Amanda. The burns had caused permanent damage and severe scarring, and now she would have to learn to live with it. Meanwhile, her parents received a message from the hospital. During the treatments, photos had been taken of Amanda with a nurse, and these photos had been selected to grace the cover of the Albany Medical Center's annual report, and copies of the report were sent to them. And when Amanda was old enough, they showed her the pictures and told her the story of how her body had been damaged. Amanda was fascinated by the photos and looked at them often, seeing herself as a tiny baby wrapped in bandages in the arms of a nurse who held her lovingly. In none of the photos was she crying, and she looked very comfortable in the arms of the unidentified woman. Who was she? Amanda often wondered, but her parents had no idea. However, she dreamed of meeting the lady someday. It was one of the few consolations she had from her difficult childhood. Because of her burns, she had to undergo several surgeries and treatments, and as the scars on her body gave her a different appearance, she was also bullied at school. She was called names and had things taken away from her, and Amanda spent a lot of time alone. Again and again, she looked at the comforting pictures. On a black and white canvas, she looks peaceful in the arms of the nurse smiling at her. She would cling to the pictures and dream of this woman who seemed to be taking care of her, even talking to the woman, telling her problems and worries. She would explain her sadness about the harassment without even knowing what her name was. As she grew into a beautiful young woman, Amanda was determined to one day find this nurse and tried several times to find out more information, but the annual report did not mention the nurse's name, and several inquiries at the medical center did not give her any details either. She could only find out that the photos were taken by a photographer named Carl Howard. It seemed that no one knew who this amazing nurse was, who had been working on the recovery room floors of that hospital in 1977. However, Amanda would give anything to meet her and thank her for showing her so much love and tenderness. Something inside her made her long to meet this person. Over the years, knowledge of the nurse's identity may have become increasingly buried. Technologies in the world, of course, did not stop. In 2015, a friend who knew of Amanda's desire to meet her mystery nurse urged her to try again and use social media. Amanda realized that indeed Facebook could be the right tool for her mission. She was now 38 years old and living in Athens, 40 kilometers south of Albany, where she worked as a human resources manager. Amanda carefully pulled out the photos she loved so much, scanned them, and uploaded them to Facebook. She created a post and asked people to share it far and wide. Amanda hoped that through the internet the post would reach the right person and that they might be able to identify the woman in the photos. Maybe now, with the power of social media, someone will recognize her. I would love to know her name and get a chance to talk to her and meet her. Please share because you never know who she may reach out to, she wrote next to the post. Indeed, you never know. The post went viral and was shared a lot. People loved this story and wished Amanda would find her nurse, but it also hit the nail on the head. Just a day after posting it, Amanda got the lead she was looking for. A woman named Angela Leary, who had been the nurse's partner at the medical center at the time, recognized the woman in the photos. She texted Amanda and told her that the nurse's name was Susan Berger and that she was indeed as sweet and caring as she looks in the photo. She knows Susan had moved, but wasn't sure where she lived now, but the name was all she needed to find her mystery nurse. She was delighted. After a search of over 20 years and 38 years after it all happened, it had now only taken her 24 hours to find out who the woman was. But Amanda couldn't be happier. She had a name and a connection, and soon she was able to get Susan Berger's phone number. Susan was 21 when the photos were taken and just out of college. Amanda was one of her first patients, and she definitely touched Susan's heart. Susan remembered the little burned baby as very calm. She said, usually when babies come out of surgery, they are sleeping or crying. She was so calm and confident, it was unbelievable, and it was indeed amazing. It turned out that for Susan, the encounter in that recovery room in 1977 had also had a lasting impact. She even had her own copies of the photos Amanda had kept all those years. Susan had always wondered what had happened to little Amanda and if she was okay, but to suddenly hear from her 38 years after she had held her in her arms, she hadn't expected it at all. "I was speechless," she said, "and to think that someone would have thought of her all these years and saved the photo like I did." Susan was still working as a medical professional, now as executive vice president of Cazenovia College Health Center in New York. When she heard from Amanda, the first phone call between the two of them was very emotional, and Susan mentioned that it was great to hear her voice and have her emotionally explain to me where she was coming from. Of course, they also had to meet in person. This meeting that had been almost 40 years in the making had to happen, and it was arranged and would take place at Albany Medical Center, where they had spent those special moments together. The media would be there too. There surely could not fail to cover such a touching story. Amanda was nervous before the event, and when she finally saw Susan, she couldn't hold back the tears. "The emotion I felt, I was not prepared," she declared, and after a long, heartfelt hug between the two, Amanda said it felt like hugging a mother to her. "My God, you're real," she exclaimed, and felt incredibly happy to be able to thank Susan in person for the care and love she had shown her when she was a baby. She had been waiting for this moment for a long time, and along the way had almost given up hope that it would ever come true. But here it was. Her deepest wish had come true. Susan was also immensely touched and very happy to see that Amanda had grown into a beautiful young woman and was doing well. She also said that she was perhaps happier than Amanda about the reunion. "I don't know how many nurses would be lucky enough to have something like that happen, to have someone remember you all the time," she stated. "I feel privileged to be the one representing all the nurses who cared for her over the years. If there are still any scars left on Amanda's body, they're barely visible at first glance. She looks ravishing. If you look closely, you can see the resemblance between that tiny baby wrapped in white bandages and that beautiful woman standing on stage next to her heroic nurse." When asked if this encounter was perhaps the beginning of a long friendship between the two, Amanda said it's already been a lifelong friendship. She just didn't know it. Hit the like button if you too are glad Amanda was able to make her dream come true, and tell us a story if you have used social media to track down someone you met.